In the deepest chamber of his mind, a professor of dead languages sits before a blank page, ink pooling at his pen's tip like dark blood. The year is 1937, and the world teeters on the edge of another great war. I cordially hate allegory in all its manifestations, he will later write, yet his fingers move across parchment, birthing worlds that mirror our own darkness and light. John Ronald Reuel Tolkien carries the weight of orphaned childhood in his bones. His father dies when he is 4, his mother when he is 12. The boy who will create Middle-earth first learns loss as his native tongue. In Birmingham's industrial shadows, he discovers that stories can be fortresses against sorrow. The trenches of the Somme still echo in his dreams 20 years later, machine gun fire, the screams of horses, the silence that follows artillery. His closest friends, Geoffrey Smith, Robert Gilson, their voices lost to poison gas and shrapnel. War does not create monsters, it reveals them, and it reveals heroes too. At Oxford, surrounded by medieval manuscripts and the smell of aging leather, Tolkien resurrects languages that died with their last speakers, Anglo-Saxon, Old Norse, Gothic. But resurrection requires more than grammar. It demands a world where these tongues can breathe again. The Inklings gather every Tuesday at the Eagle and Child pub. C.S. Lewis argues theology over pints of bitter. Charles Williams speaks of spiritual warfare, and Tolkien, pipe smoke curling around his words, reads aloud tales of hobbits and elves. Friendship becomes the anvil upon which legends are forged. A ring of power. How simple, how terrible. Tolkien understands that the most dangerous temptations wear the most beautiful faces. The ring does not corrupt through violence, it seduces through the promise of doing good. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, whispers every dictator who ever lived. Frodo Baggins carries more than gold upon his finger. He bears the weight of choice itself. Every step toward Mount Doom is a step away from innocence. The Shire's green hills fade behind him like childhood memories. Some journeys change us so completely that return becomes impossible. In the ancient forests of Fangorn, trees remember what men forget. They speak of centuries like seasons, of wars like storms that pass. Tolkien, who watched England's countryside vanish beneath factory smoke, gives voice to the voiceless. The Industrial Revolution devours more than land. It consumes wonder itself. Sam Gamgee tends his master's burdens like a gardener tends roses. His loyalty runs deeper than roots in rich soil. While others debate the nature of heroism, Sam simply loves. And love, Tolkien suggests, is the most heroic act of all. In the end, it is not the ring-bearer who matters most, but the one who bears the ring-bearer. The Dark Lord never appears in flesh and blood. He is shadow, eye, presence, the totalitarian state made manifest. Tolkien writes during Hitler's rise, during Stalin's purges, during the age of surveillance and mass manipulation. Evil, he understands, is most dangerous when it cannot be seen. Gollum writhes in the darkness of his own making, precious rings stolen from his grasp. 500 years of solitude have carved away everything human, leaving only hunger and hatred. Yet even in this creature, Tolkien plants seeds of mercy. We are all one choice away from becoming the monster we fear most. The Palantir stones show truth, but not all truth. They reveal what their viewers most fear or desire, twisting perception until wisdom becomes madness. Tolkien understands that information without wisdom is not knowledge, it is poison. In our age of infinite data, the Seeing Stones have never been more relevant. Gandalf falls into shadow and emerges as light. Death and resurrection, the oldest story, told again. But Tolkien's wizard returns changed, more powerful yet more humble. He has seen the deep places of the earth. Some transformations require descent into darkness before ascent into grace. The elves sail into the west, taking their music and their memory with them. An age ends, magic fades, the world becomes smaller, greyer, more familiar. Tolkien mourns the death of enchantment in a mechanized world. When the last elf departs, something irreplaceable dies in the human heart. Language itself becomes character in Tolkien's hands. Sindarin flows like water over stone. Quenya rises like cathedral hymns. Black speech burns the tongue that speaks it. Each word carries the weight of the culture that birthed it. To kill a language is to murder a way of seeing the world. The Ents march to war and the earth trembles. These shepherds of trees have slept while their charges were slaughtered. Now they wake to find their world diminished, their purpose nearly forgotten. Sometimes the meek inherit the earth only after the earth has been burned. Aragorn runs through wilderness, following tracks invisible to others. He is the king who chooses exile, the healer who carries a sword, the ranger who bears a crown. Tolkien crafts a leader who serves before he rules. In a century of failed kings, Aragorn stands as democracy's dream made flesh. The paths of the dead wind through limestone caverns where oath-breakers wait in shadow. Honour binds them to darkness until honour sets them free. Tolkien, who witnessed the broken promises of nations, understands that some debts transcend death. The word given must be the word kept, regardless of cost. Isengard's wheels turn day and night, grinding earth into metal, trees into machines. Saruman believes that civilization requires the conquest of nature. Tolkien, watching London's smog choke the Thames, sees the future in these fires. Progress and destruction often wear the same face. The beacons of Gondor flame across mountaintops, carrying messages faster than any messenger. Light speaks to light across vast distances. In an age before television, before radio, Tolkien imagines communication that transcends space itself. Some fires burn not to destroy, but to connect. Shelob lurks in tunnel darkness, ancient and hungry. She is appetite without consciousness, consumption without purpose. Her web catches more than flies. It snares the unwary traveller, the curious mind, the seeking heart. Every age has its spiders, weaving lies in the places where truth should dwell. The grey havens stretch toward horizons that mortals cannot see. Here, where sea meets sky, the mythic touches the mundane. Ships sail not to distant lands, but to distant dreams. Tolkien builds a harbour for the human soul. Every ending is also a beginning, if we have eyes to see. Minas Tirith rises in 7 circles, each level closer to heaven. The White City stands as humanity's greatest achievement, yet it weakens with each passing year. Glory fades. Stones crumble. Only hope remains constant. Even the mightiest towers are built on foundations of faith. The mouth of Sauron rides forth with honeyed words and bitter truths. He speaks of surrender as wisdom, of submission as peace. Tolkien, who heard Hitler's radio broadcasts, knows that evil's greatest weapon is not the sword, but the lie. When truth becomes treason, tyrants have already won. Éowyn faces the Witch King with more than sword and shield. She carries the rage of every woman told she cannot, the fury of every soul denied its purpose. Her victory is not just tactical, it is existential. I am no man becomes the war cry of an awakening age. The scouring of the Shire comes last, as it must. Evil does not end with the Dark Lord's defeat. It seeps into familiar places wearing familiar faces. Home requires not just return, but reclamation. The greatest battles are often fought in our own backyards. Tolkien writes by candlelight in his study, surrounded by books that remember empires. He sees the future in the past, the universal in the particular. His myths arise not from imagination alone, but from the deep wells of human experience. Every age needs its own stories, but every story speaks to every age. The Red Book of Westmarch passes from hand to hand, each owner adding their own chapters. History becomes legend. Legend becomes myth. Myth becomes truth. Tolkien understands that stories shape reality more than reality shapes stories. In the end, we become the tales we tell about ourselves. Publishers reject his manuscript. Too long, they say. Too strange. Too academic. But Tolkien persists, driven by forces he cannot name. The professor becomes the storyteller becomes the prophet. Some books write themselves through us, regardless of our will. The first edition sells slowly, then quickly, then like wildfire. Students pass dog-eared copies in dormitories. Soldiers carry paperbacks into Vietnam. Hippies find hobbits in Haight-Ashbury. A professor's private mythology becomes public property. When a story finds its time, it spreads like spores on the wind. Critics dismiss fantasy as escapism, but Tolkien knows better. Fantasy does not offer escape from reality. It offers return to reality's deepest truths. The fairy tale is not a lie, but a lens through which lies become visible. Sometimes we must leave the world to save it. The films bring Middle-earth to multiplexes, but something is lost in translation. The internal becomes external. The meditative becomes kinetic. Yet new generations discover wonder through these moving pictures. Stories find new vessels. Each age must dream its own dreams, even when dreaming the same dream. Environmentalists claim Tolkien as their prophet. His trees march against machines. His rivers run cleaner than industry allows. Yet his vision transcends politics. He speaks not of left or right, but of right and wrong. The earth does not belong to us. We belong to the earth. Veterans recognize the truth in Tolkien's war-torn landscapes. The thousand-yard stare of Frodo returning from Mount Doom, the shell shock of soldiers who have seen too much, the bonds forged in battle's crucible. Some wounds never heal, but they teach us how to heal others. Children read about hobbits and dream of adventure. Adults read about hobbits and dream of home. The same story speaks different truths to different hearts. Tolkien crafts a tale that grows with its readers. The best stories are those we never finish reading. Scholars debate his influences, Wagner's Ring, Beowulf, the Kalevala. But influence is not theft. Tolkien takes the old stories and makes them new, the way rivers take rain and make it ocean. All stories are one story, told in countless ways. The internet age spawns wikis and forums, maps and genealogies. Fans expand Middle-earth beyond its creator's wildest dreams. The sub-creation becomes its own creation. The myth achieves what myths must, independence from their makers. When stories outlive their storytellers, they become immortal. Tolkien dies in 1973, but his world continues growing. New books appear posthumously. Lost tales find voices. The mythology deepens with each discovery. Death cannot silence the stories that refuse to die. The professor has gone to whatever grey havens await professors. Today's world of surveillance and social media, of environmental crisis and political polarization, seems crafted to illustrate Tolkien's prophecies. The ring's power grows more relevant with each passing year. The choice between power and humility has never been more urgent. We are all ring-bearers now, walking toward our own Mount Doom. In the end, Tolkien's greatest gift is not his languages or his legends, but his reminder that darkness is not the last word, that friendship conquers fear, that small acts of kindness matter more than grand gestures of power. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it.